Turning to today's intense House hearing on Capitol Hill, top Homeland Security officials giving their assessments of worldwide threats against the United States. But DHS Secretary Kristi Noem has also been facing hours of outcry from House Democrats. Some called on her to resign as they condemn the immigration crackdown that they say has expanded far beyond violent criminals. They also cited reports of American citizens being caught up in the sweeps. Here was the secretary's response.
Individuals that are in that area may be detained until we verify who they are, and then they are released. This has been done for years, and every single law enforcement operation that has always happened, we follow the same protocols, and we continue to do that. We have never once detained or deported an American citizen. We have not held them and charged them. When we find out and verify their identity, then that is when they are released.
CNN national security correspondent Kylie Atwood has been following all of this for us. Some fiery exchanges today, Kylie.
Some fiery exchanges, but really very little detail when it comes to the global threats that the United States is facing. Most of the focus was on the administration's immigration policy, with Republicans saying that they like what the administration is doing for secure borders, focusing on what they called America's backyard, Latin America, to the focus that they've had there. But then with Democrats really going after the DHS secretary, saying that she is using agency funds for her personal vanity, saying that the immigration crackdown is going after good people, and highlighting some people who have been targeted in this immigration crackdown by the administration, who they essentially believe shouldn't have been caught up at all in all of these efforts because they don't have a track record that would indicate that they should be kicked out of the country. I want you to listen to one exchange where Congressman Magaziner was specifically putting a highlight on one of these individuals who he believed should not have actually been caught up in all of this. Listen to that.
He was arrested in the 1990s for some minor drug offenses, nothing serious. He never hurt anyone besides himself, and he's been clean and sober for 14 years. He is a combat veteran, a Purple Heart recipient. He has sacrificed more for this country than most people ever have. Earlier this year, you deported him to Korea, a country he hasn't lived in since he was 7 years old. Will you join me in thanking Mr. Park for his service to our country?
Sir, I'm grateful for every single person that has served our country.
You are locking up and deporting children with cancer, mothers with babies in the NICU, United States citizens. The biggest problem is this: you don't seem to know how to tell the difference between the good guys and the bad guys.
Now, one thing that I do want to point out, the FBI director was not present at this hearing today. Usually they are. There was an FBI official who was there. One of the things that they put a focus on was that America's critical infrastructure remains a very susceptible target to hackers from around the globe. But when he was asked about the primary domestic threat that the United States faces right now, he noted that it is the left-wing group Antifa. But then when asked for some very specific follow-up questions on that, he was effectively left speechless. He wasn't able to describe to the lawmaker where that group is actually based in the United States, how many members it has, some really basic questions that a member from the FBI who is sitting before these members of Congress should be able to answer.
Kylie Atwood, thank you so much for that update.
As we continue to monitor this, I want to bring in senior reporter Daniel Dale to look at some of the facts and what has been said during this hearing. And Daniel, one of the things we've heard during this hearing from Kristi Noem is 15 to 20 million cross the southern border under the Biden administration. Give us the facts.
So that range is too high. We know that the number is in the millions. There was an influx of asylum seekers during the Biden administration, but official federal data shows that there were under 11 million so-called encounters with migrants at the southern border during the Biden administration. And critically, that includes millions who were rapidly expelled from the country, many of whom who tried more than once. So that's not even 11 million people. Even if you add in these so-called gotaways, people who evaded detection, estimated by House Republicans at about 2.2 million under Biden, that still doesn't get you close to a 20 million number that Secretary Noem and President Trump keep using.
Let's also go to the sound from Secretary Noem about American citizens and whether they've been detained or deported under the Trump administration. Let's listen.
Madam Secretary, how many United States military veterans have you deported?
Sir, we have not deported U.S. citizens or military veterans.
What can you tell us about that in terms of detain and deporting Americans?
Well, Secretary Noem said during this hearing, we've never once detained or deported an American citizen. And I'm just not sure how she can claim we've never even detained an American citizen. Certainly, as she said, once their citizen status is ascertained, they have been released. But we know there are cases during this administration in which citizens have been detained and sometimes incarcerated, in some cases for days, even though they are citizens. Now, I'm not saying this is intentional. I'm not saying that there is some deliberate malfeasance here, but during these crackdowns in multiple cities, there have been citizens who have been swept up, who have been detained in person or brought to detention facilities by the authorities. So yes, maybe not deported, but detained certainly has happened. So I'm not sure if there is any factual basis for that claim.
Yeah, she said they've never been detained or deported, but then she went on to say, when we find out their identity, then that is when they are released. And so clearly that would indicate that they were detained and then released.
That's a good point. Absolutely.
All right, stand by, Daniel Dell, as we continue to monitor this hearing. I want to go to our panel now. We're joined by national security correspondent Kitely Atwood and Andy McCabe. Let's go to this moment when you heard some questioning between the top Democrat on the committee and the FBI official about the biggest threat facing America, who the FBI says is Antifa. Let's listen.
You say Antifa is a terrorist organization. Tell us as a committee, how did you come to that? Where do they exist? How many members do they have in the United States as of right now?
Well, that's very fluid. It's ongoing for us to understand that. The same, no different than Al Qaeda and ISIS.
No, I don't want you. I'll ask one question, sir. I just want you to tell us. If you said Antifa is the #1 domestic terrorist organization operating in the United States, I just need to know where they are, how many people. I don't want a name. I don't want anything like that. Just how many people have you identified with the FBI that Antifa is made of?
Well, the investigations are active.
Sir, you wouldn't come to this committee and say something you can't prove. I know. I know you wouldn't do that. But you did.
Quite the moment there. So I want to bring in Andy McCabe. I mean, you were formerly with the FBI, acting director. What is your reaction to that? And would the FBI typically be able to answer those questions that we just heard?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can't come to the worldwide threats hearing and claim that something is the biggest threat in the United States, the biggest security threat that we face, and then provide zero details or facts about it. Now, of course, we can't expect the FBI to talk about specific cases or identify individuals under investigation. That's sensitive information. But very typically, the director or the representative should be able to say, this is what we think about them, here's how we know about them, here's how big we think they are, here's the regions of the country we think they're located in. And the fact is, and as any follower of and student of Antifa can tell you, those facts are just not there for Antifa. Antifa has never been a structured, formal organization with an identified leader or even an identified directive. They are a loose connection of people who exhibit the same sort of anti-establishment views and violent activity among protests.